Welcome back to my channel, beautiful people. My name is Dr. D Oracle, and I come on to talk about all things metaphysical. That means things that you can't see, but to give you insight and information about that which you can only feel or sense. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's probably going to piss some people off. But hopefully at the end of the day, it's going to give you a little bit more understanding about how to use, harness, and limit your sexual energy. So I'm going to be talking about how do men control access to sex. And this is generally a pretty big argument because men always say that we are the ones who control access to sex. So today I'm going to be telling you how exactly it is that men control that and what we can do to kind of move and flow with that energy as men or women. So a lot of times we say that men are the leaders. What are the leaders? What leaders and what men are we talking about? And leaders of what? The reason why we say that men are leaders is because they set the standard. When they're leading or going first at setting a standard, then they set up a situation where women respond to that. And we are the receptive energy, okay? Or we represent the receptive energy of the universe. And so by nature, we're receptive to what a man does. It kind of goes together though, like yin and yang, because there is a part that we also play in how access to sex is controlled. Men control access to sex with attitude, and women control access to sex with behavior. And so they both go together. That's where the yin-yang effect comes into play. Because men lead in the attitude surrounding sex, and women lead in the behavior surrounding sex. Attitude and behavior go together. Attitude influences behavior, and behavior influences attitude. And this is where we get so much back and forth from, and really not being able to identify the exchanges of energy that we need to observe with one another so that we can have a better standard of living, longer marriages, and less divorces, okay? So let's just talk about that attitude for a minute and how it's evolved and changed over time. Because I'll say that men tend to forget very easily. But I know back when I was coming up as a young girl, my family were very Christian valued. And so, that was really big. Like, you need to get married before you have sex. You need to get married before you have sex. But when you express that to men back then, unless they were older, and they had the capacity to be able to handle a woman, in more ways than one, that was kind of like a turnoff. And so I remember my grandmother telling me that she wanted to marry me off to someone who was like 35, and back then I was like 13 or 14, and I was like, ew, like seriously, I wasn't set up for that, and we aren't set up for that as women, okay? We're generally going to school with our male counterparts. And so that's what definitely causes us, or it just influences our desire, okay, for men who can kind of match up with your frequency. And so with that attitude, those younger guys really pressured you for sex a lot of times back then. And the women who were actually giving sex, those were the ladies who got most of the attention from men. And, you know, they seemed to be someone who men always looked at. So you wanted to, like, be that girl. If you were like me, like, my church influence definitely, like, encouraged me to dress a certain way. We had to wear, like, certain type of skirts or whatever. And, I mean, I really didn't look like those other girls. So, in my mind, I equated, you know, wearing, like, makeup or, you know, having a certain look with how much attention I would receive from guys. And then when I figured, okay, this isn't working, even though I'm beautiful and I was one of the people who you could say had pretty privilege, and that privilege definitely didn't get me anywhere when I showed it off more. It was like, hey, you know, I kind of sort of look like her, but then I got your attention, but now you're talking about sex, and if I don't give you sex, then I don't get your attention. So it was like a pressure thing, internally speaking as well as externally speaking, because when you expressed, you know, some type of hard to get attitude, it was like some men really took to that and liked that, while the majority of men started not to like that. Also, like, it was around the time, you know, a lot of rappers, gangster rappers, whatever you want to call it, they talked a lot about, you know, having sex. And so I think that was internalized, like that attitude of giving before you received anything back. That attitude became internalized with our generation, you know, based on certain conditions. But the men's attitudes influenced us to have certain behaviors that welcomed more sex, you know, outside of relationships. So this isn't about blaming anyone, but this is just saying that whatever we are, we tend to attract, okay? So if you have ran into a man, or you've ever been a man who's felt that, you know, why should I wait for sex? That's stupid. Like, you gave out that energy. And so that energy has been returned back to men. And also, women are confused about how that behavior may help you or may hurt you, okay? I think our mothers, grandmothers tried to tell us that when they said things like, men only want one thing, or men just want to get in your panties. And so they encouraged us to go to school, you know, get an education. But that attitude of sex still prevailed. And of course, once you've already had sex, it makes it more likely that you'll have more sex. And you generally won't realize the importance of it as time goes on. You'll just experience the effects of it. And so now, men are saying, we don't want sex. Please control sex. The only time we want sex is if we've already seen that you've had sex. But we want to be the only one to use your womb in a sexual or reproductive way. Well, that's the reason why women are really confused about men, what men want. Because at one point you wanted sex from us, and now you don't. And so we're also thinking that's why men want to compete with our resources and what we have. That's not true. And attitude and behavior go together, because we know that within ourselves, if we have a certain attitude, if we're down, if our mood is low, then we're not going to be goal oriented. We're not going to be able to live out our best and highest potential. We're not going to be able to set goals and actually complete them. So we have to do things to change our attitude, like meditate, become more conscious, and actually do things to like lift our self-esteem and our self-confidence. And then we start to behave better because we feel better. So that yin-yang kind of connection is, what we're dealing with. And that's why we're having like gender wars right now. I remember one time my twin flame tried to explain this to me. But he had went about it all wrong. And I'm going to do a video about how modern men try to make us go back to cave times and use the Bible to validate, what they're saying. But my twin flame came at it more from an old-fashioned standpoint, not really recognizing that what you give out is what you get back. And so until we understand that concept, the gender wars are more like we're playing ping pong. We're going back and forth instead of just accepting the way things are and understanding how to behave in that energy, fixing our attitudes. That's what we're doing for ourselves in our own personal and spiritual lives, but we can't seem to get that correct with the partner. So men, if you want women who are untouched, stop going around touching everything. Like, leave some things untouched. And when we say, don't you have a daughter, don't you have a mother, don't you have a sister, think in that respect. Like, if this was my daughter, my mother, my sister, I would not want men to think that it's okay to access them just because they will allow it. The standard of respect should be in your attitude. If you want respect back and you feel like you deserve that feminine, divine feminine energy, that would be giving off divine masculine energy, because you would be leading and setting a standard that sex is not more important than commitment. That sex is not more important than you wanting something that is untouched, in a womb for your children to be able to come into and come out of, that is only their home, not different men's homes. If you set the standard for that and become the leader in that, there's no way that women could even give or not give you access to that. You would be controlling that in both attitude and behavior. And it wouldn't be as confusing for all of us to understand why it is that you value us, okay? Because a lot of times it comes off as you just valuing, our bodies or what we can do for you, not our minds and who we are as people. I'm sure women, we want that. We don't want to have to say we worked this job or we got this degree. You know, just our mindset alone needs to be trusted. And men don't trust our mindset when our behavior shows that we're actually not valuing ourselves. So that is why we're attracting men who don't give a damn, don't value us. Sometimes it is narcissistic because men expect for you to lead and they don't appreciate your value when you bring other things to the table, like, you know, healing and whatnot. And they're just taking because they're opportunists and you gave them an opportunity. And that's where the accountability comes in for us, as far as how we let a man treat us, how we allow a man to gain power or control over us. If you notice, like the married women who those things happen to, they don't have to say I was stupid or anything like that. Like, people don't look at them the same. People look at the married woman as, okay, well, at least, you know, you got some type of commitment from that man, even though that man may have stepped out, cheated, had different flaws. But if men could give back what they asked for, like if you could put that out what you're asking for, or never ask for something that you can't give, then you kind of level, you know, the playing field, because your body count or men's body counts are usually, you know, pretty high, and the standard is for them to sow their wild oats, okay? And so that's why women are sowing their wild oats. Unfortunately, women, we are the ones who have to house and carry children, which makes it obvious to everyone what you've been doing with your body. And it just leaves you open to judgment by men, which they're very judgmental. Like, they think logically. They look at the way things are and they make their choices like that. Like, how is it right now? How do I need to move in this energy right now? So I think that's mostly what Kevin Samuels is saying, as far as your sexual market value not being as high once you're a single mother. Okay, so you do have to think about that, and you do have to kind of add that in with your behavior. And, you know, when men say that we control access to sex, that's what they're talking about. Okay? So when men say things like they want poly, like poly is natural for them, when they say things like that, they're setting the standard. They're setting the standard. Not that you have to accept it, because you don't. But if that's their attitude, we're automatically going to behave in a receptive manner to that, okay? By us being the life-giving force, we know, you know, we've got a biological clock ticking. We want to give life sometimes, and so, you know, depending on what part of the world you live in or what type of attitude your man has, you might find yourself conceding to certain things. Men, you don't want to accept your leadership. If you want to say we always control access to sex and not take your part in that, then obviously you're creating a culture that is receptive or receives you, but you're not getting that untouched woman that you want. So, just heads up. And there are prostitutes and different things, and men can pay for that type of thing, which they always have, and sometimes we didn't know about it. But not knowing about it, you know, it's probably the best thing. But with that, you know, there have been certain instances too where, you know, men have made homes in other places, brought home diseases, or been doing something really sexually explicit that doesn't match up with their character, so women were misinformed about that or didn't know the truth. And you know, those things are going to continue to go on whether or not, you know, we come to a truce. And there are women who do things like that as well, have babies, they don't know who the father is, you know. So, but it'll happen less if we recognize how we reflect one another, how we are a mirror to each other, how we ping pong back to each other in attitude and behavior, that yin and yang dynamic, okay? We'll be a lot better off, and that'll happen less. We'll have more households where there's a balance of masculine and feminine energy by two people rather than just one, okay? So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Hopefully nobody got upset about how I'm saying that men control access to sex. Mostly we can agree, you know, on that. And if men want to take the leadership role, that'd be best. So you won't have women reflecting that same behavior back to you that you're giving out. So you've basically created that double standard. Men have. Alright, beautiful people, if you like this video, make sure you click on that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel so you can be notified whenever I upload new content. Have a good day.